This is a super thin phone, and it's what foldable phones should feel like. This is Oppo's Find N5. It's lightweight and comfortable to hold whether it's open or closed, and it doesn't compromise on features like camera or battery life. Plus, it's got a spacious internal display that's nice for multitasking or honestly just scrolling through Instagram. Let's take this phone for a spin around Barcelona, and I'll show you some of my favorite and not so favorite features. Let's go. Now, the irony of me shooting this video in Europe is that this phone isn't even launching here. Oppo says, quote, "We carefully tailor our product launches to each region based on in-depth market research and strategic priorities. The Find N5 will not be launching in Europe." So yes, this is a really cool phone, but only for the lucky few who will actually be able to get their hands on it. The Find N5 is priced at about 2,500 Singapore dollars, which converts to roughly 1,870 US dollars or around 1,480 pounds. It comes with 512 gigabytes of storage and 16 gigabytes of RAM. You can choose from two colors, Cosmic Black and Misty White. So if we compare it to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, there is actually a pretty noticeable difference here in thickness. And then also when I look at the front and I see the bezels on the Pixel versus on the Oppo, you can really tell the difference here. Like at this point, this kind of looks like a slight bit of an eyesore after I got used to this. The Find N5 is 4.21 millimeters thick when it's open and 8.93 millimeters thick when it's closed. In my hand, this phone feels incredibly comfortable to hold even when the screen is closed. It's not awkwardly narrow. It feels really standard because it's so thin. Sometimes I even forget I'm using a foldable phone that can actually open if I want it to. And even on the internal display, because it's so light, it doesn't feel weird or bulky or uncomfortable. I'm still able to navigate it very easily. I do have bigger hands, so caveat there, but I still think it's really easy to navigate through, especially if you're using split screen view. You can have up to 3 apps open. So if I want to have Maps open and a Translate app open and my list of sites that I want to see here in Barcelona, I can do that all too. Now there's an anti-reflective screen on the internal screen. That makes it a lot easier to see whatever you're looking at on here. And this helps, you can still see some reflections, but it does help, especially when you have such a wide expanse here, to allow you to really focus on what's on the screen. So, opening up Instagram in broad daylight, I'm still able to see it, fairly well. Let's go to the cover screen to see what that difference looks like with all my fingerprints all over it. But, you obviously get a lot more reflection here. If you go back to Instagram, still a little bit harder to see, but not too bad. Now with any foldable, you're obviously gonna have a crease, but the crease here is thankfully pretty minimal. So let's open up a YouTube video, for example. Let's go ahead and pop open a CNET video. And obviously it's here, but it's not too obvious or obtrusive, which is really nice, because otherwise why would you use the internal screen if you had this random bulge in the middle? So because I'm outside, it's daylight, you're gonna see it a lot more. This is probably the most that I'm going to see this crease, but under certain conditions, like when I'm watching inside, I honestly barely even notice it. The hinge is made of grade 5 titanium alloy, and there's no awkward gap when the phone is folded. Also, opening and closing it feels smooth and it doesn't awkwardly catch at any point. One of the things that Oppo has been emphasizing is that just because this phone is thin and lightweight, that doesn't mean it can't handle a little beating. Even when I'm using this, it doesn't feel like I'm gonna snap it in half or anything, which is really nice. I push down on the screen, it doesn't feel like it's, caving in any way. The Find N5's frame is made from titanium alloy, which the company says adds a 30% increase in strength over last year's model. And then the cover display is made of nano crystal glass that's supposed to withstand drops 20% better than the previous Find N, in addition to a 10% increase in scratch resistance. Super helpful to know as I'm walking around Barcelona that if I drop this, hopefully it's not the end of the world. Now, it's a beautiful sunny day here, but if it were going to rain, the good thing is this has an IPX9 rating, so I wouldn't necessarily have to worry about it getting wet. Now, there is a lot of pressure riding on the camera bump not to be too bulky and then overshadow how thin this phone actually is. And, thankfully, as I'm putting it in my bag and putting it in my pocket and taking it out, it really doesn't add too much bulk. I mean, this is a little beefy, right? But it's not, really sticking out in a way that makes it obnoxious to use. The The Find N5 features a 50 megapixel main camera, 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and 50 megapixel periscope telephoto camera. The selfie cameras for both the cover and inner screens are 8 megapixels. Overall, photos are nice and punchy with a saturation similar to what you might get on a Galaxy device, though images tend to compromise sharpness a bit for a smoother overtone. Portrait mode does a good job of keeping the foreground in crisp focus, especially with photos of people. I think this is really where the Find N5 shines. And even with nighttime shots, it does a good job of brightening up the night sky and saturating colors for that punchier, more well-lit image. I think one of my favorite features is Oppo's version of AirDrop, to be able to quickly send stuff to an iPhone. If I push the share button, I can see share with iPhone, and there's my iPhone. And accept. And I can view that photo in Photos. And this is a really big deal because typically Android phones and iPhones do not play along very well. So it's really cool to be able to just quickly share something and not want to pull my hair out. But you can also connect the Find N5 to a Mac to transfer files and mirror your Mac's display, essentially turning your foldable phone into a mini MacBook, even if your computer isn't next to you. The idea is supposed to be that, if you're on the go, you can not carry this and just have this. But I think if I had to use this tiny little display all the time, it would not be very helpful. It's cool that it can do this. I'm just not sure how much I will personally be using it. This phone's battery will easily last you more than a day. I've been walking around Barcelona taking photos and using maps and scrolling through social media, and it's still going strong. And like with really any phone, you'll still want to charge this overnight, and there is 80-watt fast charging, so if you're in a hurry, that's super helpful. The Find N5 is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip, and that powers a lot of AI features, including an AI eraser, which is pretty standard on most phones, but is really helpful when you're out and about playing tourist and somebody photobombs your shot. Overall, the Find N5 seems to have nailed what a foldable should feel like. It's nice and easy to use on the cover screen. This is really nice for just kind of quickly looking things up, and then opening it up to use something like Maps, having that wider expanse. I like being able to switch between those two as I was walking around and taking photos. And the battery really lasted me. I didn't have to worry about rushing back to the hotel to recharge. So maybe other foldable phone makers will take a page out of Oppo's book. Get it? I had to do it, I'm sorry. But let us know what you think in the comments. Are you intrigued by the Find N5, or are you still not sold on the idea of foldables? And be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to CNET for more on all things tech. Thanks for watching.